June 12, 1943. Late afternoon. 6,000 feet over western France. The engine doesn't sound right anymore. It's not a bang or a scream, just a wrongness, a ragged vibration that creeps through the pedals and into Captain William Bill Harper's boots. The Pratt & Whitney radial on his P-47 Thunderbolt is still running, but unevenly, coughing like a wounded animal that hasn't yet realized how badly it's been hit. The canopy is streaked with oil mist. Wind whistles through a seam in the fuselage, where flak tore through metal 15 minutes ago. Somewhere behind him, far above, the bomber stream continues east, silver dots fading into cloud and smoke. Harper is no longer part of it. He glances down at his instruments again. Fuel, dangerously low. Compass, spinning, then settling, then drifting again. The gyro took a hit over the target area, and navigation has become a matter of instinct and hope rather than certainty. Below, the French countryside rolls past in muted greens and browns. Fields, hedgerows, narrow roads. No obvious landmarks. No rivers wide enough to give him confidence. The radio crackles once, then dies completely. He is alone now, in every sense that matters. Harper exhales slowly, forcing his breathing to steady. 26 years old. Farm kid from Iowa. 36 missions into his tour with the 56th Fighter Group, flying escort for B-17s out of England. He's trained for engine failures, for ditching, for bailouts, but no training truly prepares you for the moment when the war suddenly narrows down to just you, a failing machine, and the ground coming up fast. Then he sees it. A runway. Long. Straight. Concrete or packed earth, hard to tell from altitude. Off to one side, a cluster of hangars. A control tower. A windsock limp in the afternoon air. It looks right. Familiar. Like the dozens of Allied field he's landed on in England since arriving overseas. Relief punches through him so hard his hands shake. Thank God, he mutters into the dead radio. He banks gently, careful not to stress the engine. The field grows larger, resolving into detail. He can see aircraft parked near the hangars, single-engine fighters, their silhouettes dark against the ground. For a brief moment, doubt flickers. The shapes don't quite match what he expects. The wing seems straighter. The nose is narrower. But exhaustion has its own logic. The human brain, starved of sleep and oxygen, wants an answer that ends the problem. Friendly field, he tells himself. Has to be. He checks his altitude. Drops the landing gear. The familiar clunk echoes through the airframe. No warning lights, another small mercy. He lines up with the runway, correcting for a crosswind he feels more than sees. As he descends, figures scatter below. Ground crew, by the look of them, running away from the runway's edge. That makes sense, he thinks. An emergency landing always draws attention. Always causes confusion. The Thunderbolt shudders as the wheels touch down. Rubber meets earth. The engine coughs again, louder this time, and Harper eases the throttle back, fighting the instinct to brake too hard. The plane rolls, slows, finally coasts to a stop halfway down the strip. Silence crashes in. The engine dies with a metallic sigh. The propeller spins down. For the first time in hours, there is no vibration, no roar, just wind, distant voices, and the ticking of hot metal cooling. Harper slumps back in his seat, heart hammering. He's alive. On the ground. Safe. Then he sees the uniforms. Men are running toward him now, not in khaki, not in the familiar shapes of U.S. or British kit. These are field gray. Steel helmets. Black boots catching the light. One man carries a rifle at the ready. Another points and shouts, something Harper cannot hear through the canopy. His mouth goes dry. No, he whispers. He leans forward, squinting past the oil-smeared glass. On the nearest hangar, stark against the wall, is a black-and-white cross. The Balkan crews. The realization hits like flak bursting inside the cockpit. He has not landed on a friendly airfield. He has landed on a German Luftwaffe base. Hands shaking now, Harper fumbles for the canopy latch, then freezes. The Germans are close, too close to run, too close to destroy the aircraft. A truck skids to a halt nearby. An officer steps forward, pistol already drawn. For a long, suspended second, Harper and the enemy stare at each other through glass and distance and disbelief. The war, which had been thunder and altitude and motion all day, suddenly becomes very small and very quiet. June 12, 1943. Moments later. Luftwaffe airfield, western France. The pistol comes up first. It is small, dark, held steady by a man in a neatly pressed field gray uniform. The officer's collar tabs mark him as a lieutenant, Luftwaffe. His jaw is clenched, eyes fixed on the cockpit as if the aircraft itself might suddenly spring back to life and escape. Hind hoch, the officer shouts. Harper doesn't need the translation. Slowly, carefully, he raises both hands, palms open, visible above the instrument panel. His gloves are slick with sweat. Every movement feels exaggerated, unreal, like acting in a play where one wrong gesture could end the scene permanently. The canopy is yanked open from the outside. Cold air rushes in, carrying the smell of grass, fuel, and hot oil. Harper blinks against the sudden light. Rifles appear at the edges of his vision, barrels tracking his chest. A mechanic peers into the cockpit, eyes wide with something between awe and hunger. The P-47 Thunderbolt is a rare prize this close to intact, one of the heaviest, most powerful fighters the Americans have brought to Europe. Amerikaner, someone mutters. Harper is ordered out with sharp gestures. He swings one leg over the side, then the other, boots touching German soil for the first time. As he stands, dizziness washes over him, hours of tension draining out all at once. A soldier grabs his arm to steady him, fingers tight, not unkind but unyielding. They strip him quickly. Not naked, methodical. Pistol gone. Maps pulled from his flight suit pocket. Escape silk removed. Even his watch is taken, examined, then pocketed by a sergeant with a practiced motion. The lieutenant circles the aircraft now, admiration barely concealed. He runs a gloved hand along the Thunderbolt's scarred fuselage, stopping where flak has torn jagged holes through aluminum. "Sie haben Glück gehabt," the officer says, almost conversationally. "You were lucky." Harper doesn't reply. His eyes are drawn instead to the parked fighters near the hangars, Focke-Wulf FW-190s, unmistakable now. Yellow noses. Sharp lines. The same aircraft that had clawed at the bomber stream earlier that day. A wave of bitter irony passes through him. He had fought these machines in the air, chased them through flak bursts and contrails. Now he stands among them, unarmed. They march him away from the runway, boots crunching on gravel. Ground crew stare openly as he passes. Some grin. Others simply look curious, as if he were a strange animal dropped from the sky. Inside the operations building, the air is cool and smells of cigarettes and ink. Maps cover the walls, France, the Channel, southern England. Pins mark airfields Harper recognizes all too well. The lieutenant gestures to a chair. Harper sits. A canteen is shoved into his hands. Water sloshes inside. "Drink," the officer says in accented but clear English. "You look finished." Harper hesitates, then drinks deeply. The water is lukewarm, metallic, but it steadies him. The questioning begins gently. Name. Rank. Serial number. Harper gives only what he must. His voice sounds distant to his own ears. He stares at a crack in the wall, reciting the familiar litany drilled into him back in Iowa, then England. The officer nods, unsurprised. He doesn't press. Not yet. "You know," the lieutenant says, lighting a cigarette, "many of your pilots do not land so politely." A thin smile. Harper doesn't return it. Outside, the sound of engines rises, FW-190 starting up, one after another. The war does not pause for mistakes. Eventually, two soldiers appear with handcuffs. They are not rough, but they are firm. Metal closes around Harper's wrists, cold and final. As they lead him out, he catches one last glimpse of his thunderbolt. German mechanics are already swarming it, measuring, photographing, arguing excitedly. The aircraft that carried him across flak and fighters now belongs to the enemy. The truck ride is short. Dusty roads, stone walls, villages sliding past with shutters half closed. French civilians avert their eyes, stare silently as the American pilot passes by under guard. Harper feels strangely hollow. The fear has receded, replaced by something heavier, a realization that this war for him has shifted into a different shape. The truck stops at a small rail station. A passenger car waits on the siding, windows barred. Other men are already inside, British by their accents, one Canadian, all wearing the same stunned, exhausted expression. As Harper climbs aboard, a man looks up and gives a tight nod. "First time?" he asks quietly. Harper swallows, then nods back. The door slams shut. A lock turns. The train jerks forward. And as the airfield disappears behind him, Captain William Harper understands that a single navigational error, just a few degrees off at the wrong moment, has carried him not toward home, but deep into the enemy's world. June 13, 1943. Morning. Dulag Luft Interrogation Center, Frankfurt am Main. The train stops with a metallic shriek. Harper has slept only in fragments, jerking awake to the rattle of wheels, the murmur of other prisoners shifting in the dark. When the door slides open, harsh morning light floods the compartment, and with it the barked commands of German guards. Raus schnell. They step down onto the platform one by one. Harper's boots touch concrete again, but this time there is no confusion about where he is. Tall brick buildings loom beyond the tracks, their windows narrow and barred. A sign on the gate reads Dulag Luft, the Luftwaffe's main interrogation and processing center for captured Allied airmen. Here, the Germans sort you, measure you, test you. Harper feels every eye on him as they are marched through the gates. Some of the guards watch with professional detachment. Others stare with open curiosity, like men examining a piece of equipment taken intact from the enemy. Inside, the routine begins immediately. Personal belongings are catalogued, names checked against lists, medical inspections conducted with brisk efficiency. A German doctor peers at the bruising on Harper's shoulder from the hard landing, prods once, then waves him on. By mid-morning, he is alone in a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a window set too high to see out of. The walls are bare except for a clock that ticks loudly, insistently. The door opens without warning. The man who enters wears no helmet, no sidearm. His uniform is tailored, almost elegant. Major Franz Keller, Luftwaffe Intelligence, according to the insignia on his collar. "Captain Harper," Keller says in fluent English, sitting down without being invited. "Please, relax, this is not the Gestapo." He smiles as if that should be comforting. Keller slides a folder across the table. Inside are photographs, Harper's aircraft on the airfield, close-ups of its engine, the cockpit, the gun ports. "A remarkable machine," Keller says lightly. 8.50 caliber guns, very powerful engine. We are quite interested. Harper keeps his face blank. The questions begin innocently enough. Where was your unit based? How many aircraft flew with you? What was your target yesterday? Harper gives nothing beyond name, rank, serial number. The words come automatically now, a shield built from repetition. Keller nods unbothered. He leans back, steepling his fingers. "You know," he says, "most men talk eventually, not because we force them, because they are tired or lonely." He gestures toward the door. "Your friends are in the next building, British mostly, good men, some have been here weeks already." Harper's jaw tightens despite himself. Keller notices. He always does. The interrogation stretches on, not brutal but relentless. Keller alternates between friendly conversation and pointed silences. He offers coffee, mentions American cities he claims to admire, speaks of flying, of the sky, of how strange it is that men who love flight must use it to kill each other. All the while, he watches Harper's reactions with a predator's patience. Finally, late in the afternoon, Keller stands. "That will be all for today," he says. "We will speak again." The guard returns. The door closes. Harper slumps back in the chair, exhaustion crashing down. He has said nothing, but he knows this is only the beginning. That night in a crowded barracks, an older RAF pilot leans over and speaks in a whisper. "Rule 1, the man says. They already know more than you think. Rule 2, never confirm it." Harper nods, filing the words away like ammunition. Days pass. More questioning. More waiting. Letters home written but not yet sent. The slow erosion of time. Then one morning names are called. Harper's among them. They are issued travel papers marked POW and marched back to the rail yard. This train is longer, heavier, guarded by soldiers with submachine guns. As it pulls away from Frankfurt, Harper watches the city recede through barred windows. He does not know where he is going, only that the war for him is far from over. July 2, 1943. Stalag Luft 3, Sagen, Germany. The camp reveals itself slowly, as if unwilling to be seen all at once. First the fences, double rows of barbed wire, coiled and vicious, separated by a strip of raked sand known as the death line. Then the watchtowers, wooden and angular, each crowned with a machine gun that never quite points away. Finally the barracks, long low buildings squatting in the pine forest, their windows clouded, their doors scarred by years of use. Stalag Luft 3 is not a place of cruelty in the obvious sense. No screaming guards. No beatings in the yard. That, Harper quickly learns, is what makes it dangerous. It is designed to wear men down quietly. As he steps off the truck, a British sergeant with a clipboard approaches, his uniform faded but neatly maintained. "Name and squadron," the sergeant asks, businesslike. "Harper, U.S. Army Air Forces, 56th Fighter Group." The sergeant nods, scribbles, then looks up with a faint smile. "Welcome to the Ritz." Inside the compound, Harper is assigned a bunk, top tier, near a window that looks out onto wire and trees beyond. His roommates are a mix of accents and ages. A Canadian bomber navigator, a New Zealand Spitfire pilot, 2 RAF men shot down over the Ruhr. They don't ask how he was captured at first. Everyone has a story. Some are heroic. Some are bitter. Some, like Harper's, are built around a single, brutal moment of realization. It comes out days later, during a cigarette trade near the stove. "You landed," one of the RAF pilots says, incredulous. "On their field." Harper nods once. The laughter that follows isn't cruel, just stunned. "Hell of a navigation error," the man says, shaking his head. "Bloody unlucky." That word again. Unlucky. Life in the camp settles into a rhythm. Roll calls morning and evening. Thin soup. Black bread. Red Cross parcels divided with mathematical precision. Time stretches, then loops back on itself. But Harper can't stop thinking about the airfield. At Stalag Luft, he had seen the Germans photographing his aircraft like surgeons studying a rare specimen. Now, rumors drift through the camp, carried by new arrivals and whispered conversations. "They've got a Thunderbolt," someone says one evening. "Pretty intact, too." Another man nods. "Heard they're testing it, trying to see how it climbs." The words hit Harper harder than any interrogation question ever did. He lies awake that night, staring at the rafters, imagining German test pilots strapping into his cockpit, measuring speeds, studying gun placements, learning how American fighters behave at altitude. He tells himself it doesn't matter, that one aircraft won't change the war. but doubt lingers. Weeks later, during a rare interview with the camp's senior American officer, Harper is asked, quietly, about the circumstances of his capture. The officer listens without interruption, then exhales slowly. "You're not the first," he says. "Won't be the last. Fog, flak, damaged instruments, it happens." He pauses. "The Germans will learn something from that aircraft, but we're learning faster than they can keep up." It helps. A little. Autumn comes. Then winter. Snow settles over the camp, muting sound, making the wire glitter deceptively in the weak sun. Harper joins classes. Math, navigation theory, even a French course taught by a former professor shot down over deep. Men invent purpose wherever they can find it. And beneath everything, plans are forming. Tunnels. Forged papers. Maps drawn from memory and scraps. The quiet, collective refusal to accept captivity as the final chapter. Harper volunteers where he can, standing lookout, moving dirt, learning routes that might never be used. He is not reckless, but he is steady, dependable. A man who understands how a single mistake can change everything. One evening, as snow taps against the window, a Canadian pilot leans over. "Funny thing," he says. "Back home, they'll tell stories about dogfights and heroes. They won't talk much about wrong turns." Harper nods. They should. Because he knows now, better than most, that war isn't always decided by bravery or skill alone. Sometimes it hinges on a compass needle drifting just enough to point you toward the enemy's door instead of your own. And somewhere beyond the wire, engines roar into the sky again. January 27, 1945. Pre-dawn. Stalag Luft 3, Sagan. The guards come early. Boots crunch on frozen ground. Voices sharper than usual. Searchlights sweep the compound, beams cutting through the dark like knives. Harper is awake before the siren sounds. Most of the camp is. Experience teaches you to feel change before it announces itself. "Everyone out," a guard shouts in German-accented English. "Bring what you can carry." The front has moved. That much is clear. Artillery has been audible at night for weeks now, a distant thunder rolling closer. The Red Army is coming from the east, and Stalag Luft 3 is suddenly no longer safe, for the Germans. They call it an evacuation. The prisoners will remember it as the Long March. Harper shoulders a pack stuffed with blankets, bread, a battered Red Cross tin. Snow squeaks underfoot as columns form. Thousands of men, Americans, British, Canadians, Australians, line up behind barbed wire that no longer feels permanent. When the gates open, there is no cheering. Just a low, collective breath, as if the camp itself exhales. They march west. Day after day, they move through villages and forests, sleeping in barns, open fields, abandoned factories. Some men fall out, frostbitten, sick. Guards urge them on with shouted orders and the occasional rifle butt. But even the Germans are tired now. Thin. Hollow-eyed. Afraid of what is chasing them. Harper walks beside a man he met months earlier, a former B-17 navigator from Ohio. "Funny," the navigator says one night, huddled against the cold. "You land on the wrong field, and it takes you 2 years to undo it." Harper manages a tired smile. Long way to correct a heading. In April, the columns dissolve into chaos. Guards disappear overnight. Gunfire echoes, then fades. And one morning, armored vehicles with white stars roll into view. American tanks. Liberation is loud, messy, disbelieved at first. Men laugh, cry, shout questions at soldiers barely old enough to shave. Harper stands back, watching it happen, feeling oddly calm. He has imagined this moment too many times for it to surprise him. Weeks later, he is homeward bound at last, thinner, older, carrying memories that don't fit neatly into words. In debriefings, he tells his story plainly. Navigation error. Damaged instruments. Enemy airfield. No embellishment. No excuses. An intelligence officer nods, jotting notes. Happen more than people realize, he says. Harper believes him. Years later, long after the war, he will sit in a quiet room and think back to that afternoon over France. The oil on the canopy. The relief of seeing a runway. The moment when uniforms resolved into something terribly wrong. He will understand then what he could not in the air. Wars are not only fought with courage and firepower. They are fought with maps, with bearings, with fragile instruments spinning inside fragile machines. And sometimes, history turns on a pilot trusting what his eyes want to see, rather than what his instincts fear. Captain William Harper survived the war. His Thunderbolt did not. But the lesson of that mistaken landing, of how thin the line can be between home and captivity, followed him for the rest of his life.